Are you starting to act up, or is it belts and suspenders?
It's just in case someone, but make sure you saw it. Thank you.
Okay. It's still 3 o'clock. All right, we'll get this meeting started. Both of our devices are recording, correct? Mm-hmm. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to call the zoning administrator meeting of the City of San Clemente to order on this Thursday, November 9th, 2023 at 3:01 p.m. The first item on our agenda is to receive and file the minutes from the October 19th, 2023 zoning administrator meeting. I have reviewed these minutes and I do not have any corrections, so I will receive and file those. The next portion of our meeting is oral and written communication. Members of the audience may address the zoning administrator on any item within the jurisdiction of the zoning administrator that is not on the zoning administrator agenda. If you wish to speak, please approach the table or just raise your hand, and if you desire, state your name and or city of residence for the record and make a presentation. Please limit your presentations to 3 minutes. Is there anybody here that would like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda? Seeing nobody, we will move on to public hearings. Our first public hearing is, let me back up, I'll read our little blurb here. The public hearing process includes a staff presentation, a presentation by the applicant not to exceed 10 minutes, and public testimony not to exceed 3 minutes per speaker. Following closure of the public hearing, the zoning administrator will respond to questions raised during the hearing, discuss the issues, and act upon the matter by motion. Our first item is item A, temporary use permit 23-384. -1, is that?
23-381.
Okay, so I will clarify for the record, the permit number is 23-381, not 384-1. The Professional Pickleball Association Tour Pickleball Tournament, at 111 Avenida Vista, Montana. Staff, you have the presentation.
Yes, good afternoon, David Carrillo, System Planner. So as mentioned, this is a temporary use permit application for a special activity, a 4-day special activity at the Lifetime Fitness Facility from November 30th to December 3rd. That's Thursday through Sunday. The applicant is again proposing this during those 4 days. They are expecting up to 1,000 spectators and participants per day between the event hours of 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily. Part of their plan is to continue to allow the Lifetime Fitness members to continue to use the on-site parking lot, which will be monitored by Lifetime Fitness employees. The current staff report before the zoning administrator today identifies 3 overflow parking lots. That's the high school, the Clarence Lobo Elementary School, and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. There has been a change. Staff has been contacted by the applicant. They're no longer going with those 3 parking lots. And they'll be seeking authorization from the outlets. So that is a condition that staff is also going to be including, recommending, or requiring that they obtain that authorization by November 17th. So the events will consist of a DJ that will be playing music in between the matches and also to make announcements. There is a condition of approval to address noise impacts that requires that the speakers be directed or oriented away from the residential neighborhoods near the Lifetime facility. Alcohol service will be available through Life Cafe, their existing vendor at the site, which is again consistent with their current conditional use permit obtained back in 2016. The event will also include pop-up tents and vendors on the outdoor grounds of the property. This event results in a total of 13 special activity days within 2023, where 24 special activity days is the limit per year. So just to go over the existing entitlement that Lifetime has, they did receive this again back in 2017. Actually, the Planning Commission approved the project and determined that the mitigated negative declaration based on the initial study that was prepared for the project complied with the requirements of the California Environmental Quality Act. The mitigation monitoring program included measures to be taken during the construction process. During that, there were no ongoing operational mitigation measures required. The Planning Commission also did add conditions of approval which limited the outdoor activities between 5 a.m. and 10 p.m. So this event before us today is in compliance and within those hours. And again, the conditional use permit already allows for full alcohol service and consumption on site. So per staff's analysis and the findings I'll read here, staff believes that findings can be made to recommend approval. The proposed use is permitted within the subject zone pursuant to the approval of a temporary use permit and complies with all the applicable provisions of the Title 17. The site is suitable for the type and intensity of use that is proposed, in that the existing facility is designed for recreation activities, including pickleball and additional temporary facilities, such as porta potties, to improve the accessibility of services on the site. In addition, again, as noted, the overflow parking will be addressed via the outlets parking lot, and again, that's a condition of approval that staff is recommending that the zoning administrator include or add to the resolution. So per those reasons, staff is recommending that the zoning administrator approve the temporary use permit for the event noted and find the project is categorically exempt from the requirements of CEQA. And that concludes my presentation. And we do have the Lifetime Fitness representative available for any questions as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Carrillo. Would you, on behalf of Lifetime, like to make a presentation? And if so, you have 10 minutes. And if you could just say your name.
My name is Brianna Stevens. I think David did a great job. This will be our third year hosting the Professional Pickleball Association, and each year we, really put in a great effort to continue to evolve, our parking, making sure that we're having the least amount of impact to the surrounding neighbors and neighborhoods. And when we had our last event in June of this year, it went well, and we've been able to continue to find alternative parking at the outlets and be able to operate within the permitted hours of operation, so that way our neighbors aren't interrupted with noise outside of those hours.
Okay, thank you very much. I may have some questions for you, but I think at this point I'll open the public hearing and ask if there's any members of the public that would like to speak on this item. We have one card submitted, and this is Shelley Holsizer. Is there anybody else that is anticipating or would like to speak on this item? If so, please fill out a blue card and submit it. Until then, Mrs. Holsizer. Sit is
My name is Shelley Holsizer. I've been a resident of San Clemente for probably almost 55 years. I live above Lifetime Fitness. Been in that house for 35 years. I sent an email stating my concerns regarding the event, and I'd like to hear your responses on it if possible. But right now I'd like to talk about two main concerns. One of them is traffic control, and the other is communication. but you did say that you're getting rid of San Clemente High and Lobo because 5 of the days of the 9 were going to be during school, and the overflow traffic wouldn't be able to go to Lobo and to San Clemente High. And talking with them today, they had no idea, there was no communication to them saying that you were going to use their facility. And they said that if you do, you need to have permission from the school district and the school. So that, we can cross that off. The other thing too is where the traffic was a bit mitigated was the June event, the pickleball tournament. It was in the summer. School was out, so there wasn't the traffic. However, the traffic was a nightmare. Living in that first row of houses in Montego and trying to come up, the fallout from trying to get into your parking lot came out on Vista, Montana and down Del Cerro. And people were really angry. And so what they would do was would go around and go into the opposite oncoming traffic, and there was a lot of close calls. Number 2, I read in the staff report that the shuttle is going to drop off right at the driveway going into Lifetime Fitness. That in itself is going to back up traffic. And I know you have off-site parking, but from my experience, last year's parking went clearly beyond the designated space on Vista, Montana. It went up Caliaguila and all the way up to Pasadena. And that created a problem for people going to the park adjacent to Lobo. There was no place to park. And for 9 days, that's a lot of not being able to park for the residents in San Clemente and in our community. I also would like to see, I know it mentioned in the staff report, the traffic management plan. I'd like to see that if possible. And also too, the other thing I'm suggesting is, as far as traffic, I would like personally in Montego, a sandwich board at the entrance provided by Lifetime that says no residential parking or no event parking. We had over 25 cars. And what do we do with that? I called down to Lifetime and they said, sorry, there's nothing we can do about it. So that leads me into my second point is communication. I did call down to Lifetime, as many people did, and we were basically told, sorry, there's nothing we're going to do about it. We never knew that the June event was even going to happen. So I'm asking, why wasn't there communication with the Master Association? I basically was told because we don't need to do that. That concerns me because we're a community and we want to embrace this event, but when there's no communication or it's dismissed, that causes us great concern.
And Mrs. Holsizer, you've got about 30 seconds.
Okay, so also too, I would like to also just say that I would like the city's parking control officers to be on site. I do believe there needs to be a city officials there to guide, because what I saw in June, it didn't work. Finally, I would really like a telephone or a text hotline where a city member can be there to answer, hey, we've got 30 cars going down Del Cerro. Do we call the police? Or who do we call? What do we do versus having it go into recording? And finally, moving forward, I'd really like to have some type of communication or a meeting where the members of Rancho San Clemente residents can meet with the staff at Lifetime so we know what's going on. No one knows. There's no communication. So I'd really appreciate that moving forward.
Thank you very much for your comments. Do we have anybody else in the public that would like to speak on this? All right. I have a couple questions to start us off, and I apologize for everybody that's here for the next item. This item is going to take a little bit of time. There are a number of considerations and questions that I have, and I'd like to methodically go through them. I'll start with some of the easier ones. This is for either Lifetime Fitness or Pickleball Association folks. And is there anybody from the pickleball, from PPA here?
There is not. No.
Okay. Under the proposed event in the staff report, it indicates that the applicant expects up to 1,000 spectators and participants per day between the event hours of 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. How do people sign up to either spectate or participate in this event?
So spectators can go on or need to go on the PPA website and purchase a ticket. And then if they're a pro, then they would go on and register. It's their championship, so it will be a smaller event than the one in June. So they would have had to go through qualifiers and such to be able to get to that championship level for this event.
Okay, so how many spectator tickets are available for sale?
I don't know that specific answer. We do thus far, and based upon our projections and based upon what the sales were for June, knowing that it is smaller event, less participants, and then obviously understanding that there's championship, it will align with that $1,000 or that 1,000 participant and spectators and pro number.
Okay, so how many participants are there in the event?
There are, as far as pros, there's 30 pros, and then there's 300 like amateur players.
Okay, so there's 330 total spots for participants. So then there's 670 spectator tickets. Is each ticket sold for 4 days, or is it per
It's
day?
per day.
Okay, so you if you want to go all 4 days, you have to buy 4 of the 670 available tickets. But there's no universe where 671 tickets are sold.
What? Can you rephrase that?
Is there an opportunity that 671 tickets can be sold to spectators?
Through their website, yes.
What's the maximum number of tickets that can be sold?
That 670 number or that 700 number.
Well, I'm just wondering if you're expecting up to 1,000, what if 2,000 spectators want to check this thing out?
So once their tickets are sold out, they won't be able to attend the event because there's a check-in desk at the event for them to sign into. If they don't have a ticket, then they can't get into the event.
Okay, so there is a maximum occupancy.
Yes.
Okay.
I apologize. I was confused by your question.
No, that's totally fine. So I don't see any condition that limits the total number of spectator sales, and I don't know how we condition an event, especially one that's outside, and there's really not that many occupancy standards for outside of buildings, you know? The property is, as was mentioned, is a 10.4 acre parcel. It seems like, how many pickleball courts are there?
We have a total of 12 pickleball courts on property. However, this you can see in the, we will be converting some to pickleball. So we'll be converting some tennis courts that we have on property to pickleball taped
Okay.
for the event.
I guess my concern here is that there's no ceiling to the number of spectator tickets, but there's a I'll say 670 people per day on this property just checking out the pickleball event. Doesn't seem close to what anybody would consider maximum occupancy.
Okay.
So I think as part of this, any approval, a limitation on the number of tickets sold would be required. Do you know how many tickets have already been sold?
I don't have that number as of today, but I can certainly obtain that number.
Well, that's what makes conditioning this a little bit difficult. If you've already sold 800 tickets for the first day of the event, and we are trying to condition this project so that only a certain number of people are actually on site, then you'd already be out of compliance with the condition that stipulates a lower number than 800.
Well, so and I apologize, we don't have a PPA representative with us, so I don't have the specific, day of analytics. But that 1,000 participants and pros, attendees, we should say, is like our maximum. So they would cut it off at that 700 if they haven't stipulated that in staff's report. Then we can certainly look at adding that, but those have been our conversations with PPA.
Okay. Is there somebody keeping count of how many people enter the property?
Correct, the welcome check-in station.
Okay, and so that person is responsible to alert staff when the occupancy's been reached?
Correct, yeah, because so in order to get into the event, you have to have a ticket. So because we're cutting off tickets at a certain level, they wouldn't be able to come into the property because they
don't
wouldn't have a ticket.
Okay. So then that gets to limiting the number of tickets. Okay, we'll come back to that, but I would consider a limitation on the number of tickets that can be sold. The event is starting November 30th, so it gives us 21 days. I'm assuming a lot of the tickets have already been sold. You know?
Like I said, I don't have the specific analytics, so I wouldn't want to speak out of turn. But I can provide that information to you guys.
Okay. David, I believe that you addressed this in your presentation, but the property has 231 parking spaces, but those will continue to be used by the Lifetime Fitness members. I'm assuming that the 231 parking spaces cover the amount of required parking for the business, not including special events. Then
Correct.
there's very little, if any, unrequired parking spaces on the site. Has there ever been any consideration of not having Lifetime Fitness operate during a time when you've got an event that is expecting what I can only consider to be almost 4 times as many people on the property?
At
So
this
that those 231 parking spaces can be used for the event rather than the Lifetime members?
At this time, that has not. We do have, if our members are wanting to attend the event, like traditionally when these events happen, our member use goes down, right? Because they either don't want to use the club during the events or they want to watch the events. So the club itself is certainly not at capacity during these events.
What does the parking lot look like during these events? Is it full?
Yes.
And if so, how would people park there? Let me rephrase this.
Yeah.
If the direction in the past was to tell all of the event attendees to park somewhere else, then why would anybody go to Lifetime? Why would Lifetime's parking be full if the membership usage of the property is declining during that time?
Because our members that are wanting to attend the event are able to park in the parking lot. So if our members have purchased a ticket and want to attend the event, they can park in the parking lot. So we've been able to use the outlets in this case as overflow. So that way it doesn't add confusion to patrons that are not members that want to come to the event.
Okay, so you can park there if you purchase a ticket. You can park there if you're a member, either to use the facilities regularly or if you have a ticket and
For
wanna
the event.
attend the event.
And that's been the best in the past because we want to be able to have a good flow of traffic and we don't want to have, patrons think I can come to San Clemente Lifetime and park there, and then they realize that the parking lot is full and then have to turn around and go back to the outlets or go back to San Clemente High School. So we found in the past it's been the best to say in our communication to the patrons that have purchased tickets that are not members to park at one sole place.
Okay. How many members have you turned away from parking in the past?
For a
For
PPA
for any
event,
of these events?
not to my knowledge that we've had to turn a member away from parking. Some members who don't want to maybe deal with traffic or would rather shuttle or Uber, they'll Uber, or they'll shuttle, they'll park at the outlets or San Clemente High School and shuttle over. But not to my knowledge that we've had to turn a member away from parking in the parking lot.
Okay.
And we have an attendant helping with the flow of traffic as well.
Okay. David, as you mentioned, so San Clemente High School, Clarence Lobo Elementary, and the LDS Church, those are all no longer being utilized. I think that's a good idea for a couple reasons. Debbie Fields with our Beaches Parks and Recreation Department was asked to come to address some potential concerns about parking around the park. Since the elementary school is not going to be utilized, I don't need to ask too many questions about that. However, this is kind of where I want to get into some historical, I'll say, staff perspective of these events in the past. It is my understanding that previous events have created an issue with the city's park that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, that the pickleball attendees will park along the street around the park, take up all of the parking, and impact the city's park rentals to the point where we've had to refund park rentals in the past because that park doesn't have doesn't have its own parking lot. Now, I don't think that would actually make a difference because parking is publicly available, and somebody could park in a park just as well as they can park on the street. However, the fact that this event will occur during the school times on Thursday and Friday, and Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday when the park is available. However, the park rentals typically are Saturday and Sunday.
Yes, I do have two that weekend, one on Friday and one on Sunday.
So, okay.
That's already pre-booked.
Okay, so for that, I've asked our assistant city engineer, Zach Ponson, to join us as well. In reviewing your application, I'm not seeing any direct methods of addressing the parking concerns that have arisen from previous events. I like the fact that there's a plan for off-site parking with a shuttle. I don't know how well utilized that was. Do we have any information from the past about how many people actually took that shuttle?
To my knowledge, every almost all of our patrons parked at, in the past, like in June, it was San Clemente High School. And so that shuttle was used, it turned around every 10 minutes and it was packed every 10 minutes that I came through. So we had, in my opinion, great utilization of the shuttle service.
Okay, and the previous attendees were in the neighborhood of about 1,000 participants and spectators.
I would say June is definitely a larger event. So this year we told them that we have to cap the size of the pros and the pros that are participating in the event. So that way the patrons is obviously going to be less from that. So June's event was our largest event, and we certainly felt the impact of that being so large, and that's why we made those adjustments.
What was the total attendance at those events, at that event,
Yeah, that was roughly anywhere from 15 to 2,000.
per day?
Hmm.
Okay,
Obviously with Saturday and Sunday being the larger.
okay. For our OCSD representatives, Captain Christian and Sergeant Streeter, I understand that there were a number of parking tickets that were issued for the June event. I believe that there were some issued at a prior event, a prior fall event. Do you happen to know, or can you share your understanding of parking impacts that have been created by this?
Tremendous. We get a lot of calls for service whenever we have a pickleball tournament. I know in one day on Saturday they wrote 60 plus sites total over the 3 days. I want to say it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They wrote just under 100. The calls that we get, it's anger. I mean, it's a serious issue with the parking. Just because the citizens, they can't see exactly what she said. The way that the cars are all lined up on Vista, Montana, that go up into Aguila, it's just heavily impacted in that area for the pickleball tournaments. And we actually had a CSO hit last year too, in June, by a car. So she was out there giving tickets and somebody hit her. So it is, when the captain told me there's pickleball, I'm like, oh, here we go. Here we go. So it severely impacts us as far as law enforcement goes.
Okay, so some of the notes I've got here. So I understand that there's a condition of approval about a parking management plan. When is that parking management plan required to be submitted, and when does the applicant anticipate submitting it?
Yeah, so I failed to mention that staff is also recommending a change to condition 7.27, which addresses the traffic management plan. At the moment, there is no date that they have to submit that by. I did speak to the applicant, and they were agreeable to submitting that or getting it approved by Public Works by November 17th. That'll be next Friday.
Okay, so they've agreed to a condition that if they do not get an approved traffic management plan from the city by November 17th, that the event will not take place.
Yeah, they agreed to that condition.
Okay. Mr. Ponson is... now, I will read between the lines and think that you're going to ask what happens if they submit on November 16th. But let's assume that today being Thursday at 3:33, and tomorrow being a dark Friday for the city, that the earliest this would be submitted would be Monday morning. Would that be an ample amount of time for you to review the request?
So engineering will be able to do a pretty quick turnaround on this. We're familiar with their traffic control plan that they've used in the past. Based on the complaints that we've received in the past years, I will like to run it through with our sheriff's department also this year. We'll also likely have some sort of conditions to try to limit the use around the school area on the park, that street with the park, Avia. Especially since the school is in operation. And it's my understanding that not only parents park for the park, but actually for the school there, and many of the teachers even have to park out there during the day, all day. And so we need to try to figure out a way to somehow restrict the event parking on those streets. But can we do it starting Monday? If I get a plan, I'll do my best to review it quickly. But I also need to work with other departments also. Mm-hmm. So in years past, I think I've gotten it a day or two before the event. which has not been helpful in trying to get an approved plan together. But we have seen their traffic control plan. In general, we're okay with the message boards that they've posted. Engineering's repeatedly asked over the years, though, that the point of sale of tickets include an acknowledgement of a buyer that you're parking off-site. And my recent research of just now, looking at their website, trying to buy a ticket, there's no mention at all of parking off-site. So a person buying a ticket wouldn't even know until trying to pull up that street. So that does have me concerned right now, because I've been saying that same thing for at least the last several events. At some point, this event to be successful in this area needs to have that, and buyers of tickets need to acknowledge that they're parking off-site at the point of sale of that ticket.
What are all of the aspects, generally speaking, that are included in a traffic management plan?
For traffic management plans, it's really just a traffic control. Are they going to tell us that there's an attendee at the entrance, one or two, and they'll explain to us what the process is, and that they're having an off-site area, how they're telling us how they're directing people to that off-site area. Is it advanced warning at acknowledgement at ticket sales, or is it just signage on the street when you start getting off the freeway? So in the past events, when we utilized the high school, the most effective device was the message board right at the high school. Please use here. They posted that up a couple days in advance of the event, I believe. And it worked well for the high school area, I think. But all the other attendees are still driving up to the site and trying to get in, and there's really not an easy way to turn around. Once you turn onto Vista, Montana, there's not a great way to turn around other than the intersection at the elementary school. So it's been a challenge in the past events to try to get an approved management plan that includes not only the traffic control plan, but a description of how everybody's going to be able to keep moving through the area and the residents can move through the area. So we have 2 different applications for pickleball tournaments kind of going through the process right now. We've been working with them on the traffic management plan it was similar to last year's that got submitted, but we've approved that, but at the same time, the management plan should include more narrative of how they're going to prohibit people from getting up onto that school via the street, how we're going to somehow prevent the event from using that street is going to be a challenge. How we actually enforce that.
So, if a condition of approval was added, or I should say, if the condition of approval 7.27 was revised or modified to include some specific items to be considered as part of that traffic management plan, would it be appropriate if those items were things like providing a plan to providing a plan that indicates that the tournament organizers would be responsible for creating or limiting access on Vista, Montana, and or Aguila for local traffic only, and providing the resources necessary to staff it to ensure that the only people that can get through that area have legitimate business at the park, at the school, or are residents of the neighborhood? Or is that a bridge too far for a traffic management plan?
That might be pretty tough because it's a full change to the current plan, that now that staging and checking in and talking to those people is now out on Del Cerro, which is a pretty high-speed road, and I expect that backup would be pretty extensive on Del Cerro. So that would be it'd be a good attempt to try, but I'm not sure if we can figure that out in a week of if we do, we're kind of going into this event for hoping for the best. And because we don't know how many, it'll be hard for them to say how many people they expect to show up per hour and how many people they can cut through that area.
Yeah, so, as I'm reading through the resolution for approval, and I will commend staff on doing a tremendous job of working with the applicant to address all of the concerns. Probably easier if I just use the staff report as a basis. There's certain findings that need to be made. The proposed use is permitted within the subject zone, and David went through all of these. That one is that one's easy to make. However, the next three are: the site is suitable for the type and intensity of use that is proposed. The proposed use will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare. The proposed use will not negatively impact surrounding land uses. Those are becoming very difficult to make. I appreciate the public's comments, and I will say that because of those comments, the finding that the proposed use will not negatively impact surrounding land uses really needs to be investigated, and that is absolutely important. However, in light of the information that Sergeant Streeter shared, which I was not aware of before, and that being that a community service officer was actually hit trying to deal with illegal parking, which was a direct result of these previous events. That's saying that this proposed use will not have a detrimental effect on the public health, safety, or welfare is even a little bit harder to make. But ultimately, I think this boils down to the suitability of the site for the use that's proposed. The site is not providing any parking for the pickleball tournament. There's parking on the site, but it's not being used for the tournament. As I'll say a natural reaction of the members to the large-scale event that's occurring there, they are maybe taking upon themselves to go to the one in Aliso Viejo or another city, or just simply not utilize those facilities for those days. However, I'll say the commitment from the property operators, not the tournament operators, to give primary use to the tournament during this time. The lack of that, it's not something that we can necessarily force. However, it puts this hearing body in a difficult position because at this point we don't have a traffic management plan approved. What were the traffic management plans of the past clearly did not work. I always commend our sheriff's staff for the going out and enforcing significant issues. There's of course always an aspect of their jobs that make their lives a little bit more dangerous than you or I. However, I don't think it's in the city's best interest if we just simply assume that there may or may not be another hit, and even if not, that we'll just have the sheriffs write 100 tickets, 200 tickets, whatever it takes. These events really need to self-contain their own externalities. I don't want to rely on the sheriffs to have to police your event. I am comfortable with conditions of approval that stipulate this. However, it's requiring me to come up with solutions to problems that Lifetime and the Professional Pickleball Association have known about for, I don't know, since the first event, I'll say. So at this point, I'm comfortable creating conditions of approval. They may seem a bit burdensome, but I'm not in the position of being comfortable approving an event that is going to run anywhere similar to how previous events have been operated. So let's do this. For beaches, parks, and recreation staff, we know that we have city events on Friday and Sunday. I'm assuming those are just right in the middle of the day.
Yep.
Just perfect San Clemente weather. Nobody ever wants to do anything, after the sun goes down.
I do have a plan for that though. For my 2 events that I have going on, they're not very big at all, but we're gonna provide parking passes for them. So they have to have that parking pass to park on the curbside of Rancho San Clemente Park. And if not, they're in violation, is what we were talking about, hopefully being able to do.
That's a great point. So, is this something that we would condition the applicants to be involved in, to pay for
No, we're going,
these applicants?
no.
Is this something that we could wrangle into the traffic management plan?
Correct. Part of the traffic management plan can include them obtaining a traffic control plan, which they will pay for. It's just a couple $100, but that can include posting no parking signs or park use only for park pass only. We can customize those signs for use on that street for the park attendees, or at least for the people of these scheduled events. It'd be good to know how many people they expect in those parties. That way we would know how much of that street to block off for those attendees. So if we can get some results of how many cars they expect, we can cordon off a certain amount. If not, we'll just simply cordon off half the whole side of the street. Which helps for the park attendees. For the school is a different animal. So I'm not sure how we would do that for parents and teachers assistants.
Okay, I think that's the critical condition here. Maybe what we can do is look at our wonderful condition 7.27. If I can find it. All right. So prior to the commencement of the event, the applicant shall hire a traffic management company to implement a traffic management plan during the days of the event as approved by the Public Works Department. All right, so the traffic management plan. This is Mr. Ponson. It's really geared at traffic management devices, the placement of traffic management devices in the public right of way, those
Correct.
kinds of things. All right.
When we start talking about a parking management plan, that's where we can elaborate into something a little bit more of their intent uses, drop-off areas, things like that, and their actual practices. So technically, a traffic control plan is putting up devices in the right of way, cones and signs. A management plan is going to explain those procedures of what they're doing. And something that I will I think I need to point out is placement of signs that say no parking. If it's not already prohibited overnight, need to be placed out 72 hours in advance. So I'm looking up right now to try to see if parking on Avia is allowed overnight. So, because that's going to be kind of critical on that street in terms of getting an approved plan.
But either way, if no parking signs are needed to be put up, they would have to be put up 72 hours in advance. There just may be signs that prohibit it overnight.
Correct. If they're up overnight, there shouldn't be cars there anyway. So like realistic, on those streets, it's a little easier.
I gotcha. So the cars that are already there.
I was starting to get a little worried about approving the traffic control plan by the 17th. If I need to post something 72 hours in advance, it puts us now into a plan being needed Monday and approved by Tuesday or Wednesday.
And is the placement of signs something that the city must do, or is that a burden we can put on the applicant?
We give them the signs to place themselves.
Okay.
Unless it's a city event, then we do. If it's city events, we do.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to thank staff and the applicant for answering all of my questions. I'm going to thank Ms. Fields, Mr. Ponson, Captain Christian, and Sergeant Streeter for providing very pertinent information about the effectiveness of parking strategies of previous events and some of the unfortunate side effects of the lack of previous attendees sticking to those plans. I know that pickleball is wildly popular and is, I will say, generally supported by a large portion of our population, and we definitely want to continue to support our private organizations being able to provide these types of events. However, in order to make the findings, there are some additional conditions that need to be placed. So I am going to close the public hearing and thank the members of the public that did reach out to me and came and spoke here today, and say that I'm assuming that you can massage the minutes to make this all sound good. That the findings for approval can be met with not only staff's recommended conditions of approval, but some project-specific conditions that we are going to create here. And with those conditions, I am of the firm belief that the proposed use is permitted within the subject zone. The site will be made suitable for the type and intensity of use that is proposed. The proposed use will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare once properly mitigated, and that the proposed use will not negatively impact surrounding land uses. Both for the additional conditions that will be added, but also for the reasons listed in staff's presentation and contained within the resolution for approval. So with that said, the primary concern, of course, is parking, so let's get to that one first. I think the easiest way to start is for me to go through some of these conditions and just add in what we have been talking about. Let's see, the first thing I do want to address is actually, since I'm going to go in order here, I'm going to start with condition 7.11. Speakers shall be directed away westward, away from the nearby residential neighborhoods of Rancho San Clemente. I believe in the past I have received some complaints, or the city has received some complaints about the noise of from the speakers. While I think it's great that they are directed west, there are still some residences towards the south that are not in Rancho San Clemente. They're the ones in the Broadmoor community. There is a municipal code that regulates the maximum volume of sound. There is both. Typically, the sound is addressed at the receptor site. However, I think that limiting the sound around the Lifetime Fitness property is appropriate. During the time of this event, I don't see a reason why the sound needs to exceed 65 decibels off of the property. That's not to say that the sound cannot be louder on the property, but by the time it gets off the property, 65 decibels is fine. And if there's one very loud speaker that's at 100 decibels on one side of the property and it gets to 65 decibels by the time it's off the property, that's great. However, for these kinds of events where there's people everywhere, I would generally recommend just use more speakers. So 7.11, I will add at the end an additional sentence that reads, speakers shall be calibrated so that sound from them does not exceed 65 decibels when measured at any point outside of the Lifetime Fitness property. All right, we've got security is addressed, and we're back into parking. Okay. Condition 7.15 reads, if subsequent to the project approval, the city planner determines that parking issues are negatively affecting the project site, adjacent properties, or the surrounding street network, the applicant shall submit an amendment with a plan to address the parking and traffic issues. This is somewhat of a common condition. However, the city planner is really not the most appropriate person here. So I'm going to, after city planner, I want to add comma, Orange County Sheriff's, let me rephrase that, Chief of San Clemente Police Services, which is going to be Captain Christian, or the Director of Public Works. Does that suffice?
Or his designee.
Or his designee. or their designees. And make sure that the commas line up so that it's their designees applies to everybody. The plan may include entering into an off-site parking agreement, creating short-term parking stalls, and/or active monitoring and enforcement to manage parking. The applicant shall be responsible for implementing the parking management plan at their expense. The amendment shall be subject to Community Development Director review and approval. This is kind of a tough one because it's a 4-day event or a 5-day event, and it's really not a lot of time to make these kinds of changes. All right, we'll leave that one as is, just with those additional changes. All right, the time permitted looks good. All right, condition 7.20, the activity may be closed down at the discretion of the police department if it becomes unreasonably loud or boisterous, comma, and I'm adding comma, or parking concerns cannot be addressed in a reasonable time frame. Let me rephrase that. Parking concerns identified by San Clemente Police Services or the Public Works Department are not being addressed in a reasonable or timely fashion. Alright, everything else looks fun. Then we get to 7.27. I'm going to leave the traffic management plan as is, and I think it's best if we just say, create a new condition 7.31 that reads, prior to the commencement of the event. You know what, I'm sorry, you want to change 7.27, correct?
That was a recommendation, but we're
Alright, so read what you want to change.
I don't have the final version, but just wanted to add that the traffic management plan be approved by Public Works Department by November 17th.
Okay. So let's have it say, this is 7.27, prior to the commencement of the event, the applicant shall hire a traffic management company to implement a traffic management plan during the days of the event as approved by the Public Works Department. The traffic management plan shall require a minimum shall require a minimum of minimum review time of 96 hours. That's 4 days. That would mean that if it needs to be approved by the 17th, it needs to be submitted.
And Public Works is okay with increasing the 17th. That was a date mentioned. Since the event doesn't start till the 30th, I'd rather have more time to get this correct if possible. So in terms of implementation of the parking, it's up to the applicant to get these things done. But Public Works is open to extending that 17th date if needed.
Okay, so let's say
I'd like
submitted
by
submitted by
15.
November 15th and approved no later than November 22nd. That's 1 week. That's Wednesday to Wednesday. We'll put a period at the end of that sentence and say the applicant acknowledges and understands that the typical minimum review time necessary for each submittal comma, either initial or subsequent to corrections being provided, comma, is at least 48 hours. You better pray that both of these are working.
Business hours. Business hours.
Period.
Business hours.
Um,
Or
I said 48
business,
business hours.
business hours.
Thank you.
Friday versus.
Yes. You're not going to do this on Sunday? The Parks Department is doing serious work.
I will be
Giving out
attending
rentals.
this and monitoring it on behalf
Alright.
of Public Works, like I do every year.
Okay, so we've got that. So what I want to say, and I'm going to make this easy, create a new condition 7.31 that reads as similarly as is necessary, and you'll know what I mean in a second, to copy 727, condition 7.27, replacing traffic management plan with a parking and transportation plan. I acknowledge this is not an official established plan in the city. However, based on the context of our discussion here today, I think it's a reasonable person will understand what type of plan this is and what is to be expected. In case it's not, I will put it into the record. A parking and transportation management plan is geared towards establishing operational and management plans for the to facilitate the parking and transportation of all event attendees, whether they are participants, spectators, employees, owners, association members, whoever, to ensure that the parking and transportation to and from the site has as minimal impact on the city's public right-of-way as possible, and can include, and I'm kind of turning this into a condition here, but I think at the end of that condition, we'll add that the parking and transportation management plan may, at the discretion of the Public Works Director or their designee, include the locations of acceptable parking and shuttle pickup and drop-off locations. It may include the placement of no parking signs at the applicant's expense. It could include a coordinated effort with Beaches, Parks, and Recreation to limit access as feasibly as possible around park and school facilities or other commercial properties or residential neighborhoods, to ensure that the pickleball event parking is as contained on the property or at the outlets as possible.
Want to include off-site signs?
It could be the traffic management plan will include the offset signs, but I think that the no parking signs, and then and any other related features of the plan as deemed appropriate by either Public Works, Beaches, Parks, and Recreation Department, or Police Services Division of the City of San Clemente. Excellent. One addition requested by Public Works is to add a condition of approval to update the website for the Professional Pickleball Association for off-site parking as soon as possible. I think that's reasonable, and it's also reasonable to require that website be updated no later than tomorrow, close of business. That
Would be nice.
Yeah, that, people accuse cities of moving slowly. I'll tell you one thing we can do real quick, update a website.
That's true.
Yeah. Go team. All right, I am going to include that condition of approval by reference and leave it up to staff to come up with the wording, but you understand what's being required and by when. We'll call that condition 7.32. Thank you. Let's see. Got that. And then the last item that was discussed or brought up as a concern was communication with city staff. So one thing I would also like to add, and we'll make that 7.33, are we up to, is a
3.2. Oh no, that was 3.2. Okay, good.
I don't know how to condition this. Well, I'll start with saying that the Code Compliance Division can be contacted 24 hours a day. They're not staffed 24 hours a day, but over the weekends, they're generally 7:30 a.m. until 1 a.m. So if you call them, even if it's an issue that we don't respond to directly, like parking in the public right-of-way, we'll get those complaints over to OCSD. But they're kind of a one-stop shop for overseeing special event permits. It would be nice to be able to condition.
7.6 has one related to a point of contact.
Yeah, it does.
A manager shall be on premises at all times. Oh, you know what? That's a great one. Let's do 7.33. Signage. Signage shall be placed along the entrance of Lifetime Fitness to indicate on a sign no smaller than 2 feet by 2 feet in lettering no smaller than 2 inches tall, that a manager is available to respond to complaints from the public and to provide their contact information on such sign. The sign should be white and the lettering shall be black or red. Red gets people's attention.
It scares them. Contrast.
The lettering shall be black, and the word notice underlined shall be at the top of the sign. The sign shall be reviewed by planning staff prior to installation, reviewed and approved for consistency with this condition prior to sign installation. And then the last item is communication with the neighboring homeowners associations. So luckily, this is within the Rancho San Clemente Association, Master Association, and there are a bunch of sub-associations. I know the president of the Master Association pretty well, and I'm going to open the public hearing enough so that I can ask our member of the public a question. You live in a sub-association.
Correct.
Would you be comfortable if I included a condition that required some notification being provided to the homeowners association with pertinent details about the event, when they can expect certain things to happen, for that to go to the master association, to be farmed out to sub-associations, or do you want me, I don't know all of the names of the associations that are like around all of the areas that we've been discussing.
Could I get back to you on that? What would be better if you mean communicated with each subdivision or homeowners association, or just go through the master and have them send something out?
That's my question. Is
I don't know
if we
what
can
would be
start with
better.
the master
Yes,
and have that be farmed out
yes.
below, because your association, the one, the ones around, like the developments around the park, around the school, like up Montana, I want to make sure that all of them are being communicated appropriately from the event organizers, with things like when it's going to start, things like when they're going to drop off signs, when the traffic management plan is going to come into place, where people are supposed to park, the things about signage, including signage on at the entrances to the residential properties, things of that nature. I think have the communication go to the master association, and then
And the master association should send it to each
yes,
subdivision, and then each subdivision send it out in a newsletter, because we get a monthly newsletter that this is what's going to take place.
That would have to happen way in advance, though.
Way in advance.
Yeah.
No, but what is this? November?
Are there emails? Do they ever send out emails?
Yes. It's mainly more paper, but we do have emails.
okay. Let's start with the master association, see how that works this year.
Okay.
So I'll add, I don't know what condition we're up to, but let's just go with whatever number you think is
734.
right. That the event organizers, the applicant shall provide notification to the Rancho San Clemente Master Homeowners Association about aspects of the event including timing of setup and teardown, both on and off site, the daily schedule of operations of the events, information about where parking and shuttle transportation will be provided, and any pertinent details related to parking permits that are a result, or other aspects that may affect nearby residents that are a result of the traffic management plan or the parking and transportation management plan.
Oh, don't try and read that.
Period. This communication shall be reviewed by the city planner prior to distribution to the Rancho San Clemente Homeowners Association. Period. This communication shall be provided at least.
Thank you.
10 days, 5 days.
Let's say at least 10 days. At least 10 days prior to the commencement of the event, including setup. And I know that communication through the HOAs spreads like wildfire. I don't mean an actual wildfire. That's the main concern of the HOA.
Part of the transportation plan will include them setting up a message board at the corner a few days in advance also. That should help make the parents, the schools aware that by that Monday they'll know to expect delays, event starting Thursday. That type of message board will be in that transportation plan.
Okay. Perfect. I don't know if I closed the public hearing again. Let's open the public hearing again. With
Could I
one more
make
comment.
a recommendation that instead of 10 days prior to the event, could we, as, residents have 30 days notice? Or is that,
We're already within the 30 days
okay.
because today's the 9th.
Yeah.
But I mean 30 days prior to the event that we know what's going on,
I
so.
mean, for future events?
For future events, could we have notice?
That wouldn't be a
Like the
condition.
event
No.
is November 30th, could we, as residents in Rancho San Clemente, be given notice 30 days before the event?
So that's a little bit difficult. We are reviewing the application at hand. And so
I get it.
what I will say that is that you've heard the concern from the public. If you would not mind taking that back to your organizers. In the future, maybe we can get the applications submitted earlier so that we have more time to flesh out these final details. All right, with that, I will close the public hearing.
Adam, I do want to remind that staff also recommended a condition to read, and feel free to modify. Written authorization from the outlets must be provided to the city for use of the parking lot by whatever date you want it. November 22nd.
Well, if that's part of the parking plan, though, you need it before then.
Yeah, whatever date is.
By the
This is-
22nd.
We're okay with whatever date you feel necessary, but we do need to add a condition that requires the applicant to obtain that approval
Mm-hmm.
from the outlets.
It needs to be before,
Well, okay, so
I was writing some of The transportation and parking management was shall be submitted by the 15th and approved by the 22nd.
so by the 22nd.
Would be.
Or do you
I'm
want
sorry, I was
that-
writing some notes on something
Yeah.
else. So what was?
So, staff is recommending a condition of approval to require the outlets approval of the
Oh.
use of their parking by
Okay.
the 22nd.
Oh, yeah.
Is this kind of a belt and suspenders thing?
That's part
They
of-
either
that's part
have
of
it or
the
they
plan.
don't. If they don't have it, they don't have an event. So, however, I don't want to put the outlets in a tough pickle here. So let's say by the 20th. That way, the approval of the traffic management plan can be predicated on at least the acknowledgement from the outlets that they're okay with the shuttle service from their property. We'll add that as the last condition of approval. And with that, see, David, it's so simple. All right. I will move staff's recommendation to determine the project is categorically exempt and adopt resolution ZA 23-020 approving temporary use permit 23-381 PPA Tour Pickleball Tournament with the revision to the conditions of approval as discussed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank everybody else for your time. I know that was
We can touch base after.
a little longer than we
Yeah.
anticipated.
Update me on all the things that said.
If I know you're coming,
Yeah, long as, okay, so we don't work until tomorrow.
So the
As
next
soon as I
one,
get
I just want to make sure they can submit it by
Yeah.
a certain date. No, yeah.
Do you have a card? I don't know if I have your.
Okay.
I can.
I'm gonna
give
bring
it to
one
you, write
for
it
her
down.
too.
Whatever's
Okay.
easiest.
I'll put it on this
So-
one.
so David, I want to talk about item B.
Okay.
Is this
So-
withdrawal?
Yeah, so the
Yes.
applicant for the next one did withdraw.
Okay, perfect. Then we're going to skip forward to item C.
Stevens
We'll deal
did
with the
that
withdrawal
Okay.
afterwards.
Okay. No one. Read the front.
Yes.
Talk to you soon.
Sorry.
All right, thank you.
Wasting time. These people saying it's been all day, we sniff this stuff.
Yeah.
All right, the next item on our agenda.
Those blue cards in case you need them.
Next item on our agenda, and just in case anybody didn't hear, we're going to skip to item 4C, development permit 23-372, Jardina remodel, 167 Calle Redondel. And we do have a staff presentation. I'm assuming Ms. Morales will be presenting.
All right, good afternoon. Carla Morales, Community Development Technician. The permit before you is Development Permit 23-372, Giardina Remodel and Addition. It is a request for an 80 square foot addition and an exterior facade remodel to an existing single-family residence that is abutting a historic resource. So the project is located at 167 Calle Redondel. It is within the residential zoning district and within the coastal zone overlay district. The project site is a roughly 7,200 square foot interior lot, and the lot is developed with a 2-story single-family residential building with an existing 2-car garage. Surrounding land uses include residential uses to the north, east, and west, and Bonito Canyon Park to the south. And the project site abuts a historic resource to the west, located at 165 Calle Redondel. And for historical data on the resource, the DPR form is provided in attachment 3 of the staff report. The applicant is proposing a 400 square foot interior remodel and an 80 square foot addition to the main floor on the west elevation for a new entry and a chimney. And the proposal also includes a facade remodel to convert the building to Spanish colonial revival architecture. And some of the components of that include a new clay tile roof, a new trellis, new deck railing and columns, aluminum windows and doors, and a white stucco exterior finish, among other improvements.
So, staff reviewed the project against the required findings for this permit. And I'll go ahead and list the reasons why staff believes we can make these findings. So first, the project will improve the massing of the current building by decreasing the width of the front wall plane as viewed from the street. That'll be replaced with a tower that's on the left elevation of the property as viewed again from the street. With that inclusion, the roof line will also be modified, and it will add some variation in height, which is consistent with the city's design guidelines to improve visual, to give it some visual interesting look. In addition, again, the project will remove that portion that was just noted, which is nearest to the abutting historic property. If it becomes visible at some point with that removal of that portion of the building, you can see the historic home a lot earlier than before when you're approaching the historic property adjacent to the subject lot. Additionally, the massing is reduced as the height of the building transitions from a 2-story to a 1-story when you go from the front to the rear of the property. So you do see in plans from a side view that we have a large side gable roof that extends towards the back. In addition, the project throughout the remodeled building does incorporate elements highlighted in the Henry Lenny Design Guidelines. This is a document that the city has fostered and adopted to achieve true Spanish colonial Bible architecture. Again, the project is proposed entirely within the private property and will not require any encroachment into the public right-of-way. This project would also not preclude neighboring properties from being used as intended by the residential low zone and coastal zone overlay district, as well as the project complies with applicable development standards of the zone, such as setbacks and allowable heights. And I will say that as part of this review, we did work with the applicant, and we asked for a view impact analysis that was provided and is included in the staff report as an attachment. We also did ask for an analysis against the design guidelines, which was prepared by the project's architect, and they demonstrated consistency with those guidelines, and staff is in agreement. We did add a condition right for the garage. As proposed right now in one of the attachments, the garage door, in staff's opinion, can use more detail, so we have added a condition of approval which requires a more ornate garage door to improve the street appeal of the property. So with that, staff is recommending that the zoning administrator approve the project and determine the project as categorically exempt from the requirements of CEQA, and adopt the resolution in the staff report.
And just to add really quickly, that garage note was updated in the plans. It's just not updated in the renderings. So the applicant did note that they would match the wooden rafter tails. So it'll look different than attachment 5's rendering.
So that,
What page are you referring to?
On the plans, it's sheet A7 and
The
keynote.
south elevation
Yes.
with the bubble around it?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
and that concludes staff's presentation, and we do have the applicant available for any questions.
Okay. Would the applicant or their team like to make any comments? Okay. I will open the public hearing. Do we have any members of the public that would like to make a comment?
I was here simply to be
State your name for the record.
Joel Manalastis, I'm the neighbor.
On which side?
To the east,
Okay. So not the historic house.
not the historic house. I'm 169.
I'm mainly concerned with your name.
Just for
I'll fill
spelling.
in the rest.
Yeah.
Does anyone else need these?
That's perfect. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
You've got 3 minutes.
I'm here only simply to be informed and to look further into the permit and what's being done. Specifically, the 80 square feet seems to be the front entrance of the tower is simply the addition. Looks like a pool and a spa. An ADU is under separate review later.
The ADUs are under ministerial permits, so there's no public hearing, there's no discretion to
Okay.
it. It's you check off the boxes, you get that permit, so
Okay.
that's not an issue here.
Okay. My main concern was the 80 square feet. I wasn't aware that was referring to the tower in the front. I thought it might be an extension on the back, and simply came to look at the details.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for your comments. All right. Well, I don't see anybody else in the room, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Let's see. First and foremost, the property owners. Thank you for investing your hard-earned money in your property, bringing it up. I did visit the site. I'm shocked that you want to change that architecture, but that's not my decision. I'm gonna leave it up to you.
If you want to make an offer, we can work I can all do your rent too.
Yeah. No, the historic home next to you, it's so hidden. It's almost. I understand that the protection of the historic resources that the city does take great pride in, but as I was driving down the street, I was like, I thought there was a historic home around here somewhere, but I did notice that 2 homes on the other side of the historic property have recently been done, and those were very prominent homes. In reviewing the staff report and the plans, I have to say this is a tremendous and very creative, yet minimal expansion of the home, but the before and after, I think, is going to be just absolutely incredible. I have absolutely no concerns about the design, the proposed design. I think that the results are just going to make this portion of Redondel just really stand out. Couple questions. Staff has a condition of approval about having discretion about the garage door. Does the note that was added to the plans provide enough does it give staff comfort that we know what it will look like at the end, that we don't need to have them run it past us before installation?
Yes, I think that might have just been a miscommunication between staff and the second and third submittal of the plans.
Yeah, because there'll be a planning final on the building permit anyways, and so it's either going to be a brown wooden looking door or not. So I don't know that we need to see the door beforehand.
Yeah, it is pretty vague. So it says new sectional wood garage door to be painted to match rafter tiles. We could review it once it comes through the building permit.
Has a door been?
Truthfully, that white door was a drafting error. We just missed it. We were focused on the house, and it's meant to be a brown door. It came through as an image, and we do have another image of it being a brown door, and we will add the detail. And it was just a drafting error.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm not terribly concerned with the condition, but if a door hasn't been specifically identified, let's keep that condition. But as part of any approval, I'm going to put it on the record now that condition be reworded. I know we've got a lot of great staff that can make discretionary decisions. However, I would rather tailor this so it's not quite so open-ended and just say planning staff shall review the design of the 2-car garage door during plan check review to ensure consistency with the design guidelines, applicable design guidelines. All right, and I did notice in the plans that you do have all the good standard language on the elevation notes about the stucco treatment of the walls, the 2-piece clay tile roof, and the mud packing and all that fun stuff. So we typically have those as conditions of approval, but they're on the plans. I don't think they're necessary because they just need to submit plans that they're consistent with that. So I'm good on that. The only major question I have is the sidewalk. I see the condition of approval about the potential for installing sidewalk. I did notice the front of the house is it's not the most conducive for installing sidewalks. Is a sidewalk going to be likely required here?
That's a standard condition that during the DMT process engineering provided to us. And I think that that's a condition that they typically implement during plan check review as well, so.
So I'll turn,
I guess one question is, does it exceed does the
50,000.
project exceed the noted valuation of $50,000? If it
that's
does,
like a box of thumbtacks now.
yeah.
This is definitely more than $50,000. I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it's not, but I mean,
We're shooting for 50, but I think it's gonna go up.
yeah. I mean, just give it another couple months, and the
Yeah.
gas prices will get it there.
I am not. Sure.
I don't want to put the applicants in a position where, everything looks, wonderful, and then, later down the road we get to this whole sidewalk issue. It's come up before, and I don't. It's a bad place for applicants to be. I'd rather kind of flush that out a little bit. I can tell that was there a minor exception permit for a garage encroachment previously approved for this project?
Not that staff could find in the research.
Okay. I say that because the garage is 11 feet behind the property line, a little bit funky. I know on that street everybody parks in very short driveways. One thing I will add is a condition of approval that essentially puts everybody on notice that if you park over a sidewalk where there is a continuous sidewalk on the block, which there isn't right now, but if in the future there is, you can get ticketed by the OCSD. They just, for ADA purposes, you have to keep those open. You have a short distance between the property line and the garage, and that's usually a result of some type of significant slope at the front, and to reduce the amount of grading necessary to install the garage. Shorter distances will be permitted. Typically for a permit, this is probably done before that permit was required.
There is a sidewalk though, right?
What?
There is a sidewalk on the.
Yeah, but it's
Are you talking
in
about
the public
80?
right of way. It goes into the drive approach,
I see.
and so what's generally required is a wraparound.
Wraparound.
Yeah. However, I don't think that's going to be feasible. You've got the planters on the right and the staircase on the left, and in order to accommodate, in order to accommodate a wraparound sidewalk, you're going to have to move the walls and the stairs back. And I believe that the sidewalk waiver request says that if you have to build a wall over 30 inches, it doesn't work. So I'm just going to say you'll definitely want to submit a sidewalk waiver request. I suggest you do it ASAP. Don't get deep into the building permit process. Do that first. It looks to me, in my experience, like that's something that would likely get approved. But just for your note, it's become issues for other properties. All right. Okay. Well, with that, I will again thank staff for their great work on the staff report and resolution, and I thank the applicant and the applicant's team for their great work. I'm hopeful that other properties down the street see what's being done here. Yes. All right. So with that, I will say the project, the required findings for this project can easily be met. The project will improve the massing of the current building by decreasing the width of the existing front wall plane and providing greater setback to the tower addition. I think what staff mentioned about the increased visibility of the historic property is a huge benefit. That's something we rarely see in these types of renovations. project does comply with applicable development standards. The project incorporates the property's natural topography. The project incorporates architectural features even outlined in the Henry Lenny design guidelines. The proposed project does not preclude neighboring properties from being used as intended by the zone. And with that, and I do appreciate the member of the public coming out to review this, being an informed neighbor. So with that, I will move staff's recommendation to 1, determine the project categorically exempt, and 2, adopt resolution ZA 23-018, approving development permit 23-372, subject to the attached conditions of approval as modified. And with that, is this the first development permit
It is.
that was approved?
It is.
Nice.
Tell the planning commission that when they get to that. All right, thank you for your time, again, and your investment in the city. One thing to note is that there is an appeal period for zoning administrator approvals. Those are, it's 10 days, but there is a authority from the planning and city council to appeal these projects typically at their next meeting, that they would have that time. All right, and so with that, we will go back to item 4B. That's you. Temporary use permit 23-382, Major League Pickleball San Clemente. Mr. Carrillo.
Yeah, so staff received written notice from the applicant that they withdrew this application.
All right. With that, we will remove this item from consideration, and I will direct staff to work with the applicants to ensure that the project is closed out as withdrawn. Thank you, Mr. Carrillo.
Yep.
Great work today, by the way.
Thank you.
Tell Carla the same thing.
Yeah.
All
On to
right.
new business?
New business, none. Oh yeah, I think.
Nope.
All right, old business, none. The next regular meeting of the zoning administrator will be held at 3 p.m. on Thursday, December 7th, 2023, where we are now. And for the record, this meeting was adjourned at 4:47 p.m.